dear Hartmut Dorgalo, dear Raphael Rogulski, dear Matthias Weber, Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, Democrats. 90 years ago, in late autumn 1933, or late summer 1933, at Corrigo, Amsterdam, there was the German version, and at Gallimard, as a parallel publication, the French edition of an essay by Heinrich Mann was published, entitled Hatred. Subtitle, German Contemporary History. On the one hand, it was the processing of the writer who fled into French exile, where he tried to come to terms with the new men in power in Germany, and on the other hand, it was literary prophecy. Much earlier than others, Heinrich Mann had realized what happens in Germany in 1933 and who had come to power. It was hatred. And more clearly than others, he predicted what might be the consequence of that: war. Because war, as Heinrich Mann wrote, war is indeed, as soon as there is a reckless nationalist power that establishes somewhere, that is war. This essay of Heinrich Mann, who has nearly been forgotten, I have to think of it quite frequently these days where nationalisms, anti-Semitism, anti-Ziganism, racism, these days where aggressive intolerance and marginalization, hatred and hate speech, in other words, inhumanity in all forms, takes power in ever more countries and has established itself. The horrible massacres of Hamas, where they massacred men, women, children in Israel, massacres of international guests, this violence that knows no limits just because people are Jewish, all of this fills me with major pain and sadness these days. Terror in Israel and the criminal aggression of Putin, the attack of Ukraine, are the most recent, the most horrible confirmations of Heinrich Mann's findings that he described in his essay. The war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine does not only cause incredible human suffering and misery, with thousands of deaths, with millions of people that lose their homes that were destroyed and taken away from them. It is also a very targeted war against culture of Ukraine. The historic and cultural identity of Ukrainians is supposed to be eliminated in order to destroy their coherence and resistance. And that's the reason why systematically historic buildings, memorial sites, excavation sites, churches are attacked. This is why systematically museums are plundered, libraries and other cultural states are destroyed and pieces of art taken away. And thus they do not only want to destroy the historic memory of Ukraine, the remembrance, the memories of Russians, of this interface of Russian and Ukrainian culture. According to Marcel Proust, common memories and remembrance are the best elements to create peace. An important reason for Putin and other despots to fight against these elements that can create peace. They are the natural enemies of despotism. And this is why we as Democrats stand with Ukrainians. And that's why we stand with all those who suffer from the destruction of their cultural identity or are threatened to lose this cultural identity, because we are the natural allies of those who want to create peace. For us, it is something that we take for granted these days, to live in democratic societies and to rely on the rule of law. Most of us don't even know anything else. And as we've always said, this is exactly where the danger is, because democracy, the freedom of opinion, tolerance, acceptance of rights of minorities, all of these are elements that are not to be taken for granted, not only in Germany and in Europe. It can be taken for granted. At the worldwide level, at the global level, we see more and more anti-democratic tendencies and trends and the spreading of nationalist ideologies. It is very apparent and obvious that democracy has come under pressure. It is threatened and it is attacked also here. And democracy is not immune against these dangers. This basic pillar of our liberal and way of living in freedom, this liberal attitude of Europe needs to be preserved, needs to be protected, and needs to be defended, especially the view to German history. German history of the past century makes it very clear what happens if nationalisms and intolerance triumph. How can we take this experience of nationalisms, totalitarian ideologies, wars and dictatorships, how can we use them in order to promote peace and common responsibility for future generations and strengthen them? The answer to that can only be the international exchange via the fundamentals, the basics, and the future shaping of a society and remembrance culture that is based on common values. This is indispensable to all of us. Ladies, gentlemen, the European Network Remembrance and Solidarity has set the objective, and I quote, to have a spirit of friendship, to look at the history of European nations and connect these histories in order to get and contribute to a European remembrance culture, which is more important these days than ever before. With globalization, with migration of human beings of different political, cultural, and societal backgrounds. All of these societies in Europe do also change. Germany and its European neighbors have become much more diverse. Diversity is more and more turning into a structural feature. But how can we, in such a changing environment, spread ideas of the past of Europe? How can we reach out to individuals that themselves have just come here, fled here as a result of war and suffering in their countries, to feel well here? And I'm very happy that you want to look at European migration societies and remembrance, and this is the title of one of your panels. This is what I appreciate a lot, because it's a major challenge for the future, and it is important that you develop new concepts and ideas on this, also for our definition of a remembrance culture in a society that is a migration society. And on the program, there are so many exciting topics that are listed. You've also got one panel on your agenda, which is national interest and transnational solidarity. It is so interesting to see how remembrance and the handling of controversial topics and stakeholders, that you try to really do that. This is a democratic dialogue, a democratic discourse that we absolutely and urgently need. When I talk of European remembrance, of course, I do not want to talk about a standardized, a norm or a unified knowledge, and certainly not a European textbook. The objective cannot be to come to a simplified idea and image of European history. That's not what we want. It is about respecting and tolerating and understanding the other one, including the perspective of the other when it comes to the past and when it comes to the future. So it is all about enlarging our own horizon, looking beyond the tip of our nose and understanding the views and perspectives of the neighbor. In that sense, the European remembrance, when shaping common Europe, can play an important role and make important contributions. And this is why the work of the European Network Remembrance and Solidarity, with its commitment to a future-oriented understanding about past of Europe, is absolutely of the essence. The objective is to bring people in Europe closer to each other, and there is no better way to do it. You can, of course, build on our support also in the future, and we want to come closer to Poland with our contributions. I wish you a lot of success for your forum. It's such an important encounter of looking into the past and shaping the future. This is something that is very, very much in the center of my heart as well. Thank you very much.